firm. So I'd like to know, how did you start Purple Quarter to begin with?
This was not so much about the best talent and the best company. This is very similar to what Jack Ma says, right?
Yeah.
Get the right talent in the right company. So that's what we went after. It's not about the number of people you've gotten, the number of people you'd rehire again.
Yeah.
Also talks a lot about what have you managed to actually build in terms of a relationship, what you want that person to really do along with you.
Yeah.
So these guys get put on those valuations, and that's your 83 plus parameters, which actually talk about a person's complete persona. So we're part of the Stanford Seed program.
Okay.
Purple Quarter is, so I represent Purple Quarter, so I go for that Stanford Seed. So
How does the program help you with?
So it helps you with the overall transformation of the company.
What's been the best and the worst advice that you've ever received?
The best advice that I've received is it's not people that are bad, it's just situations that make them. The bad advice that I've received is
Thanks, Roopa, for coming to our show.
no problem.
And very happy to have you here. So you've been the solo female founder of a executive search firm. We don't see many such women in this category at the senior levels, and our show is all about people who have wiped out the norm in their own ways, in their own work fields. So it's a pleasure to have you here, and would love to know about how you got started, what really picked up your interest in this world of talent search, and you started your journey in tech, so why not build something of your own as a startup in the tech field, and why go along the path of the CTO executive search firm. So I'd like to know, how did you start Purple Quarter to begin with?
Sure. So Purple Quarter wasn't like a strategy game, we didn't go after saying that, hey, executive search, so let's think of it, we'll build a firm which is around bespoke CTO search, right? It was more out of a chance than choice, in all honesty, because 2015 Q4 saw a lot of Bay Area talent moving to India, right? There were a lot of startups which managed to get a lot of these folks, tech visionaries and tech leaders, move to India in Bangalore, Mumbai, Gurgaon, Delhi, multiple of these specific locations. The only caveat was they didn't last for a long time. Okay, they all moved back to the US in less than a year. Now that became an opportunity in disguise, because we really wanted to rake in and see what went wrong. Why did they leave within a year? Now I'll tell you the backstory, right? As soon as these guys came in, we said, wow, this looks like an opportunity. Let's talk to more people in Bay Area. Let's bring them to India. And we called it the Boomerang Project.
Okay.
So we spoke to a lot of Indians in the Bay Area and said, hey, look, there are more of your sort who come here, so why don't you also jump in? So it takes about 6 to 8 months, Radhika, to actually bring someone here to India, because you're already settled and you want to move. So post that 6 to 8 months of dating some of these guys, saying that, hey, come and join startups here, you can imagine it was a kind of we did happen to have a situation when these guys went back, the examples that we were giving. Now that kind of made them think, is India really ready for technology talent like them? We were put in a spot, right? So we had no way to go ahead and say, put on the patriotic hat and say, forget them, you guys come change the piece. Rather, we did a case study. We figured out why one of these startups, I'm not going to name them, but why one of these startups lost their global CTO. When we actually zoomed in and checked, it was not to do with the person's tech jobs. It was not to do with the person's abilities. Nor was it the company's failure or the founder's failure. Now that the plot thickens, right? You're wondering what really went wrong then. So we zoom in a bit. It's just two subtle factors. The first factor is the person came from a very large setup and was put into a startup dynamic equation. And you have different ways of that people have, decision making is very different. Like a startup founder can have an epiphany in the night and say, hey, let's shut the other project down, let's start something new. Whereas a person who comes from a larger ecosystem is going to take time to say, is this idea really viable? even if we have to launch this project, let's do this over a certain amount of time. So that was the first mismatch. They didn't do courtship. They got into a marriage and landed in a divorce. That's what we say at our end, right?
Yeah.
The second piece is technically the person's family never moved to India. And I don't know how the company missed it.
Yeah.
How the search firm that had engaged with them missed it, because that was the biggest thing.
Yeah.
It was really subtle, but they didn't move.
Yeah.
So these two became the main reasons why the person did not work. And we took a case study of just one firm in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Right. So typically we realized that this was not about so much about the best talent and the best company. This is very similar to what Jack Ma says, right?
Yeah.
Get the right talent in the right company. So that's what we went after.
Yeah.
So that was the opportunity statement staring into us. We said, first let's go and talk to about 200 plus technologists and tech visionaries across the world and figure out what is it that they really want.
Yeah.
And mind you, we didn't reinvent the wheel. We didn't say that, hey, let's bring out some new methodology of sorts, right? So we took 10 parameters which are being used by all search firms across globally. And we went out and met with them. Now I'll tell you what these 10 parameters are. Basically, we talk about what is your aspiration, what's your motivation, what do you want to do in life, what are your value system. So there are 10 of these parameters. But while we met these 200 people, we presented to them the opportunity that we were trying to look at, the landscape. Right? You can imagine we didn't go with a job role. So I would call these guys and these guys would say, purple what? Sorry, what lady you want to have coffee with me? And what conversation are we having, right? So we started at that part, where we had to tell them, hey, this is what we're looking at. This is the opportunity. Now we want to solve for that. And now we want you guys to also support us while we're doing this. When that happened, it led to a mind-blowing 83 plus parameters that we discovered on this journey.
Oh my God, from 10 to 83.
Absolutely, over a 6-month period after meeting 200 plus people, right? Kudos to them, and of course we put it on our site as well. Thanks to them, we were able to build something called as a behavioral metrics model.
Okay.
See, most search firms talk about, hey, I'll get you a guy who's value driven, will fit into your culture. We didn't want to go that route. Because if you go back to the case study we did, it was nothing to do with the culture, right? It was more to do with the subtle areas. So what we definitely did is we figured out 65% of that was technology agility. How agile was the person, right? From a technology landscape to fit into an equation, right? Then the remaining pieces we covered were the parameters around, let's talk about the kind of people they manage. What is the leadership style, right? When I talk about leadership style, the part that people miss is, for example, if I were to ask you, Radhika, and I'm going to ask you this question, how many people have you hired?
10.
10?
Yeah.
Okay, now let me ask you the second question. How many of those will you rehire?
Yes, that's a very good question.
She's not responding. Great. So, you can imagine when we talk to any of these guys, they give us the numbers in triple digit numbers. Of how many people have you hired. Now those numbers drop to a single digit.
Don't tell me it's single digit.
Yes, it does. As soon as you say how many of those would you want to rehire, right? Now that's a concept we try and evaluate. It's not about the number of people you've gotten. The number of people you'd rehire again also talks a lot about what have you managed to actually build in terms of a relationship, what do you want that person to really do along with you, right? So along with these factors, we also talk about value system, which is again deeply rooted in all of us, irrespective of where we come from. The conditioning that a person has, where is the family based out of, right? And what kind of people do you hang out with? Socially, how active are you? There are also parameters we gauge in terms of, hey Radhika, you're going on a trip, so how do you usually spend your holidays? Now you may turn around and ask me, how is that even relevant, right? So we're actually looking at a risk versus reward ratio. What I mean by that is if you say, hey, I'm a backpacker and I love going into the mountains, right? Which means you're up for challenge. But if you were to say, hey, I always go to, a 7-star and like luxury and I want the spa and, the Michelin star restaurant, then there is a different way that we assess the person. We're saying nothing is good or bad, but it's each one's choice. Right, so these guys get put on those valuation, and that's your 83 plus parameters, which actually talk about a person's complete persona. Now these persona, we managed to put them into 3 different buckets.
Yeah.
The first one we call it as creator. So think of it as a person who's able to create something from the scratch.
Yeah.
Now you have a product market idea. The person comes in and helps you make it a product market fit through technology. Is the storyteller. He's the person, or he or she is the person who's able to build that for the company.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the second block we put these people into is called the nurturer. Think of it more as a time when a company scales, they all run into similar kind of turbulence, as we call it.
Right.
Yeah, because you're moving upwards, but you really are going through some areas that you need to work upon.
Yeah.
Yeah. So B2Cs run into scope of, let's say that they want to move from monolith to microservices. They're talking in terms of, hey, I want to bring the CAC down.
Yeah.
I'm looking at my LTV. So what do I do at customer retention? Yeah, so that's what the person comes and does for a B2C. Whereas a B2B game, you're talking more in terms of distributed systems. You're saying, what do I do with my data? How do I get my platforms to integrate with older technology? Because I'm working with enterprises and I can't customize so much. So how do I build a pure platform that will work for all?
Right.
So a nurturer comes with a very different mindset, skill, potential to fill in for that kind of a stage of company. Then you have a reconstructor. Now the reconstructor comes in at a stage when the company is already $1 billion company.
Yeah.
But they run into their growth being plateaued. Now what does this person come into? Comes in with innovation, right? Things of new strategies, of course with the risk taking aptitude as well, where they build about 10 different product lines, 8 may fail and 2 succeed. And that's what the person does as a reconstructor. Now this model that I just told you of a creator, nurturer and a reconstructor, we do exactly the same piece with companies as well.
Okay.
So we take their 18 months business roadmap, tech roadmap and put them into creator, nurturer and reconstructor.
Okay.
Not based on their valuations or the stage of companies, how large, how small, none of that. And then we marry these two off.
Yeah.
Okay. So Purple Quarter, coming back to what you asked, Purple Quarter was actually built on just this piece of by chance. Right, and going after this problem statement and finding a solution. And 6 years, fast forward today's date, we are in the 7th year of operations. We managed to do about 150 plus searches across the world and kept what I just told you intact. Right, so we put a method to this madness.
That's nice.
Yeah.
And how did the name Purple Quarter come?
Technically, purple is think of it as the color purple itself is associated with the royal clan.
Okay.
Are you aware that purple flowers are available only in the mountainous region? And they would go pick them only during winter. Now, using those purple flowers is how the purple color originated. Okay, purple didn't just land out of anywhere, right? So that was used in their in some of the attire that they wore, and also on the crown. I don't know if you've seen the royal crown, has purple on it.
Okay.
Right, purple rubies, purple, you have this purple color around it. So it's more associated with unique and royal. Right? Unique, I'll put it as unique. Quarter is your management grid 5,5. So a management grid has, where you plot people in performance. So this is where you get the person on 5 on people and 5 on performance. So it's your unique 5,5 is what we are after.
Okay.
That's what Purple Quarter really means.
Oh my god.
Though, so we're part of the Stanford Seed program.
Okay.
Purple Quarter is, so I represent Purple Quarter, so I go for that Stanford Seed. So we were selected out of 400 odd people, so there are 87 companies across Southeast Asia that's going through this program. So technically you're transforming yourself, right? We want to be a 200x of what we are today, and hence we got into the program.
And when did you get selected for the Seed program?
We're almost at the end of the program. We're on part 4 of it. When I say we, so we have 8 more people in the company. So we picked up people. So we ran a pre-mortem exercise and said who will be part of this program. So some of them are function leaders. They do get to be, but we also have 2 other people downstream who are also part of this program. And
how does the program help you with?
So it helps you with the overall transformation of the company. So you're talking in terms of, building your vision statements, not just for now, but 5 years down the line. You're also talking about, hey, what are your values that you want to build in? Where do you see yourself growing? How do you put your, your roadmap in place? How are you thinking of objectives for the company? Financials. So you're actually creating a framework for financials.
Okay. 5 years ka?
Yeah, 5 years.
Okay.
So we'd already put an AOP for 3 years, but now we were looking at 5 years. And how do you create new lines if, for example, we have our own technology head? So that becomes a completely different roadmap versus a search engine that we run, right? So we had to build these two roadmaps separately. So it gives you a lot more clarity, and that's when you can transform your business.
Okay.
So most founders, because we deal with a lot of founders, I think where we all get stuck is, you've heard of the saying, right? When writer's block. Yeah, so founders have a founder's block as well. Right? So
okay.
Everything's going well,
and
then you're thinking, सब बढ़िया चल रहा है, maybe कुछ और करना चाहिए, right? So we get in that block, and then we don't know what to do next because we can't strategize and say, hey, what do we do differently? What more can we do, right? So during the system of what more can we do is when maximum we fail because we make mistakes. Because we spread our wings too far off, and then we are chipped off, and then we are saying, oh my god, right? So Stanford Seed actually helps you bring in a lot more clarity. Okay. And then you also evaluate out of these 5 ideas, how many are doable and when should we execute it, right? Which is very meaningful for a business. Right? And you also need to allocate funds, and you need to budget, and you need to be thinking of, okay, let's say, so we are bootstrapped, right? There are other firms which are also looking for funds. So how do you put yourself in front of investors? Okay. How do you go about making sure that your financials are in order? How do you look at creating your HR systems in order, your OKRs, your milestones? So it's a part of everything. Yeah.
And for the benefit of the audience, like, what's the duration of this program?
It's a year. It's a 1-year program.
Oh, it's like a full diploma course, like practically, where you get taught and you do things in real world.
Yeah, you do a lot of pre-work, post-work,
Yeah.
and then there is a transformation plan that we have to submit to a panel. They give you a certificate if you clear that.
Okay.
And your team and the person, that is myself, we get awarded by Stanford that we've completed the program, which is quite prestigious in its own nature.
Nice.
Yeah.
And they help you with all the talent, investor connects, and whatever they can from their ecosystem.
They help you with an alumni which has about 800 odd other entrepreneurs, which I think is wonderful.
Wow.
And this is across the world, right? So you're not talking just limiting yourself to one part of it. It opens up a network. So there is an alumni that gets connected.
Yeah.
And of course, investors are, the least thing that one needs to be worried about. Every specific place has an investor now, a VC firm, right? So I think it's more to do with how you connect with other founders, how do you network, how can you be part of an ecosystem and add value to the whole piece. So I think that Stanford Seed does that really well. Okay. So this is typically for people who are 3 million above. You can't get into the course.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can't get into the course below a specific amount. So
okay.
And you go through like evaluation. So they do about 5 rounds of questioning, and that's how you get into the program.
Oh my god.
Yeah, you submit stuff just like the way you get into a course.
Yeah.
So it's very typical of that. Yeah, as a company you're doing that. Yeah.
That's very interesting actually.
It is very interesting. It's very supportive.
When you started this firm, what was your vision like? I'm sure the Stanford Seed guys would have asked you this many times, and so would have your peers. But where do you see it going towards, like from a founder's perspective? What's your vision for Purple Quarter?
So when we started the firm, I think the vision was to be the bespoke of CTO search, be the number 1 firm in India.
Yeah.
I think 6 years down the line, we've managed to grab attention in enough eyeballs. I'm not going to be. I take pride in saying that we are a notable firm, and people do consider us as number 1. We don't yet, but people do consider us as number 1. They have good things to say about us. The one thing that as we were building, Radhika, we figured that there's a very thin line between greed and vision. The moment you steer away from your vision, you move towards greed.
Right.
Which means that, what I mean by that is we got offered other roles. Why don't you do this? This seems more interesting. Apart from a CTO, you helped us close a CTO. Why don't you do CPO, which is like closest to technology. Why don't you do that? Why don't you do a digital role? Why don't you do a design role, right? So we steered away from these distractions. We actually said no, right? Because we wanted to be firmly focused on our vision, and rather take up greed. So that was periodically the value system that we built, and that became the vision of the company of how we wanted to place ourselves to be the top one search firm globally. Now that's what we're going for right now. I already told you we're in multiple places.
Correct.
So though we are established in India, we're not established in the other regions, Radhika, and I have no qualm saying that, right? Because we know in the next 3 or 4 years we'll be able to build that kind of absolutely, and some shape and form of being recognized in those regions as well.
And when you started out, what was like the revenue model you decided upon? Because there are so many things in the market today and people are just fighting for that small margin, and people are really curious about how we can improve our scalability and profitability. So in all this chaos, how did you try to decide your own revenue model and the structure, how your business will function?
So we are a very low capex company because our only expenditure is human and the office rent. Absolutely. So we are a very high margin business. So we went after being the most expensive search firm in India from day one.
Oh, nice.
Because we were carving out something super niche, and we were going so deep into being thorough of actually offering what we did. Right. So of course the first 2 clients didn't sign up for the amount, and we were okay with it because we were just setting ourselves up. From the 3rd one onwards till date, we've kept the fees pretty standard.
Okay.
So it's either a percentage model or a fixed fee model that we offer.
Okay.
And they can actually go about talking to anybody else that we've kept it standard, whether it's a stealth mode company or even if it's an NC.
But you choose the 2 options on the basis of whichever is higher, or you give the option to the client?
No, you give the option to the client. See, I'll tell you, it's more sentimental, right? So let me explain this to you. So it's more like, hey, if I were to take the fixed fee option, right, then I don't have to worry about the search firm thinking about how much base is this person going to make. Because the percentage model is dependent on the base that gets offered.
Correct.
But a fixed fee model is fixed. So Radhika gets a 2 CR, Radhika gets a 6 CR, it doesn't matter. Because 𝒄𝒂𝒑𝒆𝒄 is just going to get that fixed fee amount, right? So typically we offer both. It's about what people want to choose, right? US typically works on a fixed fee, and US is pretty straightforward because you have percentage models as well, but everybody is already aware. In India, we go through the most amount of negotiations. I'm sure you do too.
I know. You should ask the lawyers how much Indian clients negotiate.
Absolutely.
That's why I've stopped working with them.
Oops. Are you guys listening? Yeah. So you understand that, but we explain it to them that it's a value-based transaction. So you shouldn't be looking at what you're cutting. A 1% or 2% here is not going to add dent into anybody's P&L. So why are you even going down that direction? Look at the value add we'll add. And we've had 98% of the people that we've placed have stayed around for 3 years. So that is the value we're going to be offering you. So look at the return that you're going to have on the investment that you make, right? So don't look at it as a cost, look at it as an investment. So that's what we go about telling our audience. So we are the most expensive search firm in India, to be honest with you.
But you said you're the most expensive, so what's the market average? Like, what is the market functioning on in terms of the percentage?
Well, everyone's doing different numbers, right? So there are people who offer 18%, as low as 18%, or I believe now with the market turbulence, people are offering even 15%. Okay. We don't go down that route. We are 2x of that.
My God.
So we've been very clear on our stance. Whoever we work with, saying that, hey, this is what we do. Because we're super niche, right? We're not going to be like a 15%. I could tell you, hell, do all your C searches, and you still make your monies, right? But for us, it's more or less one search, which is your technology
with the equal money. That's a better approach to go after. Why would you want to spread yourself too thin?
Absolutely. So the different firms have. See, I'm not saying who's right, who's wrong, but I'm sure they make sure that they make their profit margins by.
Like, how do you do client sourcing? I mean, now of course it's easier because you've been under operations more than 6 years now. And how was your first month of the first year like? I want to know that. And I ask this to a lot of founders because that's where the real chaos and the real action starts, where you look out for everything when you have nothing and still get it done. So how was it for you when it came to client sourcing?
So leads generally come through networking a lot, right? Our first client that we signed up in Mobi happened through technologists who told me that in Mobi is looking and I want to work for them. So yes, so we we knew Mohit Saxena, so we gave him a call and fixed a meeting and said, hey, I have a candidate for you and he wants to work with you, but you have to work with us to get the candidate, right? So that's how InMobi happened. That was our first deal.
But what if the company engages with the client directly, like with the?
They wouldn't do that because the person's already talking to us, right? So the person knows we're well connected in the industry. The client knows that, hey, these guys come with some background, and if they're being so open and transparent about there is somebody who wants to work with you. Because, see, Mohit had already advertised that role for a year plus. And they were not able to find someone for a year. And we helped them fill that talent in 17 working days.
Oh my God. How did you meet this person who told you?
Just the 200 plus people that we are meeting, just like that, on that go. Yeah, so by the end of the 6th month, I met this gentleman and he said he wanted to work with InMobi, and that's how I found my first client. And fixed a meeting on the other side, and luckily for me, the person was traveling to the US for 2 weeks. So within 2 weeks, I got the meeting fixed, and I also got his meeting fixed by the time he came back from the US with the company, with InMobi.
Wow. I'm sure he must have given you some bonus on top of
No, he doesn't even know. He doesn't even know. Both parties didn't know that that's how it happened. Yeah, so that's the backstory. But deals do come to you when you network quite rigorously. But after that, over a period of time, over a year, we invested heavily in a lot of branding, marketing initiatives. We're the only search firm that actually does banners, hoardings.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, we do.
Where?
So we've done one in Mumbai, Chennai, Bangalore.
When was it in Mumbai?
I think it was in July when people travel the most. So this was towards the Terminal 1 airport. We had one in Bangalore, which is near we call it the ORR, where, the outer ring road where you have all the tech companies. And Chennai, this was outside the airport as well. Chennai was more like a trial, wanted to see how it works out. Delhi, we weren't sure. See, it's more in terms of recall. Brand recall. People identifying Purple Quarter and what do you do, right? So we want to put that out there.
The name shouldn't be unknown.
Correct. So those are initiatives that we do, and we do a lot more outbound reach than we connected to the entire VC community, strategic relationship partnerships. So we do all of that to win our clients. So we started that from year one itself. So we, of course, the hoardings didn't start from year one. Of course, we didn't have the capital to do that.
I know,
But we did do a lot of marketing through LinkedIn. We did do a lot of these SEO on LinkedIn and stuff. Very nascent, Radhika. I would say that it's been a journey. In 6 years, we really aced that game. But the first year, I can imagine, we tried everything. Right? And we failed, but it was okay. We tried something new. So we managed to get a lot of good run because of the kind of progress we did. We did 3 closures in less than 6 months from the time that we kicked off. From this InMobi happened, we did 3 major closures. First was InMobi, second was Browser Stack, third was Swiggy. When we got Swiggy, their head of engineering, who became the CTO later, but that was a big one.
How?
Because we moved this gentleman from Amazon to Swiggy, $1 trillion they were $1 million company at that point of time. And thank you, Swiggy, for believing in us as well, because we were an unknown name, right? But it was an interesting case by itself, because at the end of the day, food delivery was not the best thing for someone like a leader in Amazon to go in and join, right? So that was a risk that he took, and the company, of course, was rewarded because he was there for about 5 years before he left. So typically, if you were to look at it, that became the biggest hit for us. In 3 closures in record time of 6 months, Purple Quarter was already being spoken about in multiple forums and word of mouth, and people knew what we did. And that's when I told you about the arrogance that hit, and and we thought we had arrived and all of that stuff. But with time, I think we've gotten wiser. But
I love how open you are about these things.
One has to be, because I don't want to play God. So at the end of the day, I think I was talking to somebody in the US, and we said one thing that as Indians we're not used to accepting is failures. Because we've been coaxed right from the beginning that if you fall, don't cry. just show like nothing happened. We've been told this, right? So we've been conditioned and preconditioned, but if you cry, people will know. They come and help you. They'll support you in the whole thing, right? So failures are the biggest reason why you're successful, and talking about them doesn't make you any less. It actually helps you become a better person, right? And it's okay to be vulnerable and say that I failed. I was arrogant, and now I'm not, hopefully. Well, being humble is a journey, so
But how do you really make sure that this candidate, like a person who's been working in an Amazon, and since you work with a lot of startup companies, how do you make sure that the person actually believes in the transition and thinks that, okay, this other path might be a better path for me? And I'm sure recruiters play a very, very big role in that convincing part. So how's that journey for you guys?
Well, see, all technologists are deeply inquisitive, and you need to be data driven. You need to have a lot of knowledge. You need to be telling them what is the startup ecosystem like, what are they getting into in the first place. If you don't have answers to those questions, these are passive guys. They're not actively in the market. So you can't woo them to anything. Right? I'm using the word woo. Please don't get me wrong. But you can't typically tell them that, hey, move here, right? And you need to know the company that you're talking about also in a completely different order. For example, they could come and say, hey, but Zomato has been there longer. But why should I look at Swiggy? Because shouldn't I be looking at Zomato then? And I don't think Swiggy has these... At that point of time, Swiggy was not even the company that you can talk about today. Right? They were really struggling to hire. They had their reasons for not being the best of in the industry. But Zomato had already played like 12 years in the game, and they were just like, 4 years. So it's super important to know the actual dynamics at Swiggy. What are they going after? So Harsha had already thought of how it's not going to be a food delivery app. It's going to be a delivery convenience app. They were already thinking of Instamart. They were already thinking of Genie. They were already thinking of what are the other things that we can do to make it a super app, right? And how do you build the supply chain ecosystem to actually honor some of these things, right? So if you give them that journey of what, the vision that the company has, then you can actually charm a technologist and give them the whole spiel of saying, hey, this is what you're going to be building. This is the impact you're going to go and create, right? So that actually becomes the captivating piece, and that's why they want to say, okay, let me at least talk to them and see how this is going to be, right? So we roped in 𝒂𝒏𝒄𝒄, and we roped in a partner from their end to actually have the first conversation with this gentleman. And that actually had an impact on the technologist, because the person from 𝒂𝒏𝒄𝒄 also is MS, right? And the person is from computer science. So it was easy for the two of them to connect and talk a little bit, and we got that going. So we knew who exactly had to be the first runner to talk about the company as well, right? That is also something that we play Cupid and say that, hey, not the CEO, but maybe in certain companies we look at the CMO seems to be giving the storytelling a little better. So we put that person as a front face when they're talking to a C-level technologist, because we want the person to also get attracted to the storytelling concept, right?
Stories sell more than anything else.
Look at you making a whole gig out of this. Do I get paid by the end of this? No.
Good you gave that disclaimer, because a lot of people might think that they do think about a lot of shows that happen. So
oops, I still marketed for you. I need to get paid for this.
But coming to our rapid fire segment, I'll ask you a quick question before we come to the end. What's been the best and the worst advice that you've ever received?
The best advice that I've received is it's not people that are bad, it's just situations that make them. The bad advice that I've received is should I really say it? Because the person listening will know it's their advice.
I hope they don't listen.
Okay. All right. The bad advice that I've received is let people work for you. You don't work for people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Being in talent, this was the advice you got.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh my God.
Yes.
That's lethal.
Okay.
Yeah, and let me ask you now, who's been your mentor?
Well, couple of people,
Yeah.
right? Because I'm on the tech side of 𝒄𝒂𝒑𝒄𝒏. The gentleman I moved to Swiggy is a form of a mentor.
Oh.
I also have, we also have mentors internally. So there is, I don't know if you heard of Abhishek Goel from Traction.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, so
I interviewed Neha recently.
Oh,
in Bangalore,
nice,
yeah.
nice. So, yeah, Neha and I also know each other pretty
Okay.
well. So, Abhishek is a mentor. So, I go to him when we're starting off anything new. So, I run more strategy through him.
Okay.
Right? And Mekin used to be a mentor, but he's gotten really busy. Mekin Maheshwari used to be the CPO, Chief People Officer. Before that, he was a CTO with Flipkart.
Yeah.
So, he used to be a mentor from the recruiting angle because he's
Okay.
really hired a lot of people. Amar Nagaram is a dear friend, but he's still a mentor.
Of Amaro.
Amar Nagaram used to be the CEO of Myntra,
Okay.
and now he runs a company called 𝒉𝒐𝒻. So he's definitely a mentor.
Okay.
And I run past anything which we are building from a technology standpoint. So is Dale Vaz, who used to be the CTO of Swiggy, the one that we
Yeah.
got from Amazon to Swiggy, but now he runs his own firm as well. Dale runs
Okay.
his own firm. A friend, but he's a very good mentor. So he cautions me when I get all ballistic about an idea and say, hey, I think it's good. I need to go after this. And he said, I don't think so. Maybe you need to reevaluate some of these
Yeah.
pieces. Yeah. So these are some of my mentors. I have a coach as well. There's a difference
Okay.
between a mentor and a coach. I hope
Yeah.
you know. So mentor, we go to them with a specific question. They give you an answer. But I do have a coach
Okay.
who helps me look inward.
Yeah.
And
Is it like a life coach, business coach?
it's a business coach.
Okay.
And he also does a little bit of life coach as well.
Okay.
And so I do learning lunches with founders. So on a learning lunch with Harsha, he told me that Roopa, coaches, great, you have one, but the best coach is books. So I read a lot of books, and that helps me look inward as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So all these books, maybe some of them I have read them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe some of them. Yeah. I have to look the upward. It's not.
We'll give you the best one.
Thank you.
suggestion.
Thank you.
Yeah. Actually, you should read this Managing the Professional Service Firm.
I
That's
haven't
very
read that
nice,
one.
because you're also in the services industry, and so are we in the law firm, and it has some really good tactics and more. Yeah. So that'll be really interesting. Yeah, but it's interesting. You keep doing these learning lunches, is it? It's a
Yeah.
nice hashtag.
It's not a hashtag. It's actually from a guru. I forget the name of the gentleman. I think. So I went to this 10x show, Grant Cardone. That's when one of these coaches had come in, and he spoke about the learning lunch, which I made notes of, and I executed that. I did it for a year,
Yeah.
but it's very difficult to continue. So some ideas are great, but if you can't continue them, then. So in one of these learning lunches, I learned from this person. There was another learning lunch where I learned about where a person used to go in. So let's say you have a problem in life. What do you do generally?
Speak about it.
Speak about it. All right. So I think about it, right? So, but this person goes into a room, shuts himself into that room till he solves that problem and comes out.
By himself.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it could run into like a day, 2 days, but
He'll stay in the room.
stay in the room, find a solution, and come out, right? And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. right?
God.
Yeah.
How did you get to the 10x show? Like, how did you know about them?
So Grant Cardone, of course, the 10x book was
Yeah.
one that got attracted to. And definitely a great sales guy, right? So I just
Yeah.
wanted to see how is this going to be, how the show is going to be. So it was very interesting because when I went there, I was quite amazed by it was in a football stadium. The entire stadium was flooded with people.
What?
Yes.
For their thing?
Yes, and he jumped out of a plane in a parachute, and he sold the the parachute, the dress that he was wearing. He sold it right there to one of the guys who wanted to buy it, and that's why I like him, because he can sell anything.
Oh my god.
Yeah, true. He sold that suit, the parachute. I don't know what you call it, but the entire suit to somebody. I think the guy paid him like $700 or whatever for the suit and bought it right there. I love that part. Yeah, I love that part of Grant Cardone. So that's why I went for that show.
Yeah.
But through that show, I did learn quite a few things of what the coaches really do across the world. And one was learning lunch, and that's how I got into that. So some of the other ones that I think I learned was, there was this lady who came in and she spoke about how it is important to fail, and you fail continuously every year and keep track of your failures. So I don't know if you have a journal to keep track of your failures, but the moment you have a journal to keep track of your failures and you keep looking at it, you'll be amazed to know, Radhika, that the number of solutions that you'll come up after a year will be very different from what you thought of when you actually solved it, right? And that was one of the most interesting ones. There's also a disappointment journal that she spoke about. So yeah, you get to know a lot of things that you can look inward, right? So
very interesting. And because the show is named like Wiping Out the Norm, I'd like to ask you of one instance where you think you have wiped out the norm.
Talent comes with potential.
Yeah.
Either you have it or you don't have it.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a male or a female. We spoke about someone painting this picture in this room too. By looking at the picture, I'm not going to say it's been painted by a male or a female.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say, what a lovely piece of art.
Yeah.
Right? Very similar to that is how I think potential should not be graded with a gender.
Yeah.
So I never felt that piece ever coming to me, or people saying, oh, you are a woman, so we want to do business with you, or we won't do business with you, or how can you be so straight up? And I'm considered to be very straightforward, and so
no, but you can talk of any instance where you have wiped out the norm, maybe professionally or personally.
So what I've wiped out is I'm very straightforward as a person. So see, diplomacy doesn't come to me. So it's something that I'm in the consulting piece, remember, and I'm still not diplomatic. And I've wiped out that norm that you have to be diplomatic. You don't need to please anybody, right? You have to speak your mind, and they're paying you for that. They're paying you so you can speak your mind and tell them that this is wrong, this is right. So most consulting search firms professionally don't speak their mind. They just want to be nice. You can be kind, yet speak your mind. Right? But you have to be straightforward. So I think that's wiping out the norm in our industry professionally.
Nice.
I think it's all preconditioning and conditioning that I wiped out from my head. So I don't think of myself. I think of myself as a person, and everything else doesn't matter. Right?
Absolutely. So, but it was great to have you, Roopa, on the show. Loved the conversation.
Absolutely.
It was so transparent
Likewise.
and honest.
Thank you so much. That's me.
No, pleasure having you.
Thank you so much, Radhika. Thanks for that.
Yeah.